Hey everyone, and welcome to another post-game interview update. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Our show is brought to you by Pliability. On today's episode, we have 8-time CrossFit Games athlete Patrick Vellner with us after about a month or so that it's been since the games.
Doesn't feel like that long. It still feels the wounds are still fresh.
Oh no, they're still fresh. They're still open. They haven't healed yet.
No, we're getting there. We're getting there. Things are starting to come back online. It's all good.
So overall, how's like your body been feeling? Were you like really sore after the games this year? Obviously, different programming that we'll get into, but what's it been like this year versus some other years with your body?
I mean, every year's got a little different flavor, right? So I think some days you walk out and like, oh man, my arms are way more sore than I remember them being, or my legs, or my back, or whatever it is, right? So I think halfway through I was pretty dang sore, and now it's fine, right? I think too, like you said, the differences in kind of the style and even just new movements, stuff you've never done. Like anybody knows, if you don't squat for a week and then you go in and even squat moderately heavy, you're sore
Yeah.
like you've never been, right? So there was a bit of that for a lot of athletes, that just doing something fresh and new just gets you in places you didn't know you had. So it was cool. It was like, yeah, I think everybody experienced it a little bit, and I was certainly sore at the end of it and happy to take a month off doing not a lot.
Were you able to take a vacation? Because I feel like on Instagram, I saw everyone, whether it was like Aruba or like Cancun, it seemed like everybody went somewhere tropical.
Yeah, I my wife saw that too, and she said next year we're going on a holiday after the
Oh
games.
no.
So
So you guys had some
no,
FOMO.
I'm on board for that. I'm totally on board for it. The reality of us usually is that we go back to work almost immediately as soon as we get home. So we had to come back. I took the Monday off after the games,
That's it?
but
One day you took
she
off?
I worked on Wednesday. I had Monday and Tuesday off, but I don't normally work Tuesdays, so it doesn't really count.
Okay.
So, but my wife was back to work on Tuesday, so she and yeah, so we had to get back and get back into the normal hustle. So, I think that after that, and then during that week, seeing everybody putting all that stuff up, she was like, "Yeah, we could do that," and like we could. We just, it's not our habit, right? We're just so used to jumping right back into things. So it was I agree. I think that we could, I had a little holiday at home, my staycation. I got to sit at home and stretch in the living room and not exercise. So I've now started exercising but not training, I would say. And then we'll see this week, we'll see if I feel like training or not.
Okay, so starting to wean back into like a normal athlete life.
Yeah, exactly. I think and the I don't take the I don't add extra days at work or anything when I'm not training a lot. So I've just got more days at home to like play with the kid and walk the dog and do little things, right? Low intensity activity, stretching lots, like little bits of rehab and things for all the little bangs that you take during the games. And so it's all that, like I said, slowly taking things online and then getting back to feeling like you actually really want to train again, because
Yeah.
that's the key. If you get in too early and you're already resenting it after a month of the off season, then you're in trouble.
Okay, so with the off season, I mean, you mentioned that you have some time to like focus on spending more time fixing some of those tweaks. Ramwad, they just rebranded to Pliability. You're kind of part of this group that is testing out the new app with some of their things. What does your mobility look like, and how has it like worked with Pliability?
Yeah, I've been working with them for a long time, and I think the change up is awesome. Really, it's funny. It's kind of gotten more specific in some ways and broader in some ways. They've sort of rebranded to be, less CrossFit specific, and
Mhm.
start to branch out to, extend and branch into different sports and just like general lifestyle, which is awesome, and make it more available to more people and have better mass appeal. But then, they've also added in a bunch of a rehab component and some more kind of physical therapy stuff that's a little more specific to, say, specific areas of injury or troubles that people might have. So like I said, every year you come out with something or you're dealing with something all year. Nobody gets out alive, right? But
No.
I've always got something going on. So that kind of focus is great. And that's what I do for work too, right? Like I work as a chiropractor. I do a lot of rehab, a lot of conservative care, a lot of like lifestyle intervention stuff. So I'm
Mhm.
super into that stuff. And it's fun to work with them and see where they go with those platforms. And then, every now and then take a bit of my own medicine, because I spend a lot of time advising people on things they should be doing to help their bodies, and then I turn around and just pummel mine into like a pile of garbage. So I have
You
to
don't take your own
take my own
advice.
advice. I got to take my own advice sometimes, and but yeah, it's totally a lot of do as I say, not as I do. So that's why this time of year is great. And they, like I said, they're putting this new stuff out now, and I haven't actually played with all the new bells and whistles, so I'm looking forward
Yeah,
to digging
here's what it
into it
looks like.
and seeing how well I can treat, my shoulder and my knee and stuff like that, because I'm sure I could use the help.
So, like with the off season, oh, actually, it doesn't look as good on that screen. We'll go back to this one, but like with some of
Yeah,
like the
one of the
new
nice colorful
features,
ones.
and yeah, and like it kind of walks you through all of these different movements, as you mentioned. Like it focuses on some of like the PT focused approach. This is obviously something that you do as a chiropractor. How does this transition into the benefits of really just like somebody who's looking for overall like wellness and just taking care of their body, especially if it's not a CrossFit Games athlete who is as beat up as you?
Yeah, our demands are a little bit different, but
Just a little.
it's habits, right? Like all of it is lifestyle. Like lifestyle intervention is something we could all do better at. It's little things that we could do just a little bit better that are just gonna make you feel a little better, stave off injury a little longer, make you recover faster if you do get injured. Like having a higher baseline in a lot of ways is the medicine for a lot of the things that ail us day to day. And that's kind of what we talk about in CrossFit too, right? Trying to increase the general population's baseline level of fitness. And
Mhm.
it's the same kind of application. It's just, other things like joint health and whatever. So all of these things work hand in hand. And like I said, I give this lecture daily when I'm at work, and it's just good stuff. Like the easier you can make it for yourself to get into habits like that, the better. So, we have the advantage of technology now that helps us do that. We're all addicted to our phones anyways. So
Yeah.
if you're gonna open up an app that tells you to swing your shoulders around a little bit and move your hip like this and that, and then it makes you feel better, and now you can go on that hike you wanted to go on, then that's the name of the game, right? It's a lower barrier of entry for people to get into good positive habits, and we like you get feedback. That's like the other thing, right? You can
Yeah.
see that progress, and that is what gets addicting, right? Is seeing like, oh, man, I've jumped up 3 points on my whatever mobility. And again, same reason why I got addicted to doing CrossFit is like you get that little bit of improvement here and a little bit there and a little whatever, and now you've generated so much positive momentum that you love it and you're in, right? So
Sure.
I think it's harnessing those things and those kind of things about human nature and trying to push us in a positive direction, because we all need the boost sometimes.
Okay, so on this screen, which part of your body needs work right now?
Let me see here.
We got the shoulder,
Probably
the
probably my
elbow.
shoulder and knee. Shoulder, knee, back, quad, wrist, hip, ankle. Probably all those.
You're like, check every single
Yeah,
box.
the check engine lights are still on, I think, but
Oh,
we'll get
no, they're
there, right? It's
still
a
on.
thing.
That's
Yeah,
okay,
it's a
that's
lot.
okay.
It's a long. We got a long time. It's like we don't go right back into like 10 out of 10 training, right? I'm gonna gently walk my way back into it. There's gonna be a long on ramp, and then we'll take off, and we'll be good.
So how does like the off season with mobility, how does it change from like when you are in between seasons versus like right in the thick of things, maybe like during semifinals, CrossFit Games, that kind of stuff?
I think it's easier to make headway. Like if you're trying to improve your baseline of whatever overhead mobility, that's hard to do when, every day or every other day I'm doing a bunch of pressing or I'm doing this and that, and I'm using those muscles, so they're getting used, and then it's almost more of a recovery game at that point and less about increasing baselines. So when training's really heavy, it's sometimes hard. Like I'm gonna try to increase my hip mobility a ton, but I'm just cranking my hips every day.
Mhm.
Whereas when the impact is much lower from training, you can do a lot more good on those areas and get them to a better starting point. And that's why some of this stuff, even like, I don't know, everybody keeps reminding me that I'm getting older, but when you start to need more of that time to warm up and get yourself primed for training, like I can't just hop in and crack my knuckles and be like my shoulders are in the right spot anymore, right? So some of that stuff is even just like, again, habits of getting in and getting the wheels greased so that we get better at the positions we train in, right? So
Mhm.
if I'm constantly like my chest is tight because I've been pressing, so my overhead position's far forward, and then I keep training like that, guess what your overhead position is now? like over here,
Not
right? So
in the good
you've
position.
you've got to like bring that stuff back and do that stuff, get it to a good place first, so that then you're hitting the positions and reinforcing the positions that you want. So that's a big part of it, is just like getting things to a good, smart starting place, so that then all of those touches, you're reinforcing the good stuff. So it's just, you got more time now. Like, it's just, I'm spending less time training. And like I said, I'm not adding work days. So if I'm only doing like a 90 minutes of exercise a day, and I'm used to putting in 3 or 4 hours, then,
Mhm.
like, I don't always do it, but I should be reinvesting that time into some of this stuff, right? I'm doing a little bit of it, but I gotta be better, right? There's always room for improvement.
And now is the opportunity for you to improve, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. You've got a couple months now where, like, impact's low, you've got time, you've got like less stress, it's taking up less space in your life physically and mentally. So you just can like reinvest the time. I don't know. Kids at daycare, I'm just sitting home alone anyways. I might as well do it.
You might as well. But when you say, like, "Right now I do have time," are you getting ready for Rogue?
Not yet. That's what I said.
Okay.
This week I
You're
might
like,
start seeing
"Meh."
if I feel like training or exercising. So it's getting close to time to do that. Like, I've been kind of just keeping the joints moving so things don't get too gross when I do have to start training. But yeah, I think I'm almost there. Maybe another week, and then I'll really start to push it a bit. But yeah, I mean, you got to also enjoy the time when you have it, right? Like, I was at a
Yeah,
wedding last weekend. I got another one coming up in a week or so here.
nice.
So we don't, the season is long nowadays with lots of touch points, and depending on what you choose to do, there's not a lot of time to put it down. So this is the time. So I'm going to try to enjoy it while I have it. And that's the trap, right? I'm trying to enjoy my freedom and not spend a bunch of time working on my body, but at the same time, I like kind of have to. So,
It
you
seems
gotta
like a
walk
big
that
balancing
tightrope.
act.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
gotta walk
yeah.
that tightrope a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, exactly. I'm trying not to stress about it right now. When you feel like you're really ready to go, nothing motivates like a deadline. I will say that. So when Rogue starts to creep a little closer, I'll start to sweat a little bit and be like, all right, you
I
don't
should
want to
have
look
started
stupid
3
out
weeks
there. You don't want
ago.
to look stupid out there. Like, let's go. Like, so you'll be. I won't have a hard time picking it up when I need to.
So what's the sweet spot going to be for, like, the lead up to Rogue? Are you thinking, like, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
I
I'll tell
I
everybody it
wanted to
was
see if
two
you'd bite
weeks.
on that.
I'll tell everybody it was 2 weeks when I get there.
I like the
But
strategy.
yeah, I don't know. Probably like, yeah, 6 weeks is probably fine. That's a good on ramp to like get back. Rogue's also, it's a fairly specific competition,
Mhm,
in the sense that, like, you know, it's funny, I guess, specific and sort of not in some ways, because they could always just build some random equipment for you. But odds are it's going to be like a heavier implement or something strongman-y or whatever, because that's where the roots are, right?
yeah.
You're expecting to see a fair amount of barbell, a fair amount of like strongman, whatever. So I think you can kind of direct your training a little more than for the games, where you got to be a little broader. Like, your time domains are going to be super
Mhm.
long and super short and whatever. Whereas I think the upper limit at Rogue is shorter than it is at the games, so you can invest that time appropriately. So I think 6 weeks is probably fine. We'll
Sure.
see. I'm sure I'll eat
We'll
my
find
words on
out.
that one, but yeah.
We'll catch up back at Rogue, and I'll be like, "So,
Yeah,
Pat, the weekend's
yeah,
over. Do you feel like it was 6 weeks? That was good?"
yeah. I'll either look like a genius or an idiot.
Yeah.
So
We'll flip a coin. We'll see which one it
yeah,
is.
exactly. Whatever. It's fine. It'll just hurt a little bit worse depending on how bad my mistake was.
Okay. Well, I think it's all a learning experience. I know at the beginning of the show you said I'm still licking my wounds when it comes to the CrossFit Games. Um, 6 overall, I imagine that was not the goal going into it, but how have you kind of processed this experience this time at the games versus some of the other times that we've seen you there?
It's frustrating. I think I underperformed relative to my ability, but that's why you have to do it. And I think that also the way that they had the games now, and we'll see. Honestly, hopefully that's how it stays for a few years. With Bosman programming, there was a high value on execution, and
Mhm.
there was a lot of events where one mistake would drop you 10 places, two mistakes you'd be outside of 20th, and there's just like not a lot of room. So the people who are consistently performing perfectly end up with the podium placings. And like there was just too many mistakes in a few areas, which is frustrating. And that's what happens when you're kind of pushing the limits, right? So, I had a couple bad ones, and I struggled with the heat in a couple things, and it just was like it didn't feel. I didn't feel like I was myself, and that sucks. It's annoying when you have when everything culminates to one weekend, and then you feel like you didn't do yourself any favors or represent yourself well. So, but that said, I have nothing to say but good things about the guys who finished ahead of me. Like, I think that when you look at that and then you look at your performance, I was like, yeah, I got what I deserved. Like, there was I didn't deserve to be in fifth or fourth or third or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, it didn't, those guys did, right? So there's no, you can't be upset about that. You just look at where you underperformed and try to take that and do something with it. So, yeah, I think it's cool. And I think that new format and the new kind of, I guess, maybe it's not a new format, but a new kind of style of programming.
Yeah, for sure.
It makes it exciting. I think it makes it so there's more parity, there's more risk, there's more volatility on the leaderboard. Like, you're gonna have people like who tank a 30th place finish on the last day with like 2 events left, and it's just like it's gonna be part of it, right? And I think that makes it exciting as an athlete and a spectator. To be honest, there's been years in the last 4 or 5 years of my career where by the third day of 5, like, you can tell who the top 5 are, and they're
Yeah.
effectively uncatchable because too many of the events are just it's all movements we've done a billion times, and it's just fitness, and there's not a lot of errors that are going to get made, and so none of those guys are going to take an outside of 10th place finish and open the door for anybody. But now that's not necessarily the case. So I think that it keeps all the other athletes in it. Like, if you were in 20th after day 2 years ago, you might slowly check out. And then you just see those front runners pull away even farther because mentally the other guys aren't necessarily there. But now it's like you got to stay dialed in right to the last minute because there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong as we've demonstrated this year. So I
Sure.
think there's something cool about that, and it's exciting, and it makes it more of a sport. It makes it so that on any given day, someone can turn in the right performance and steal a podium spot from some of the best in the world, right? So that's cool. I'm totally here for that. I think it's awesome.
Well, and I think
Like I
that's
said,
an
I was
interesting.
on the receiving end this year, but
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows?
But I think that that's what makes it such a cool perspective for you to have finished not the way that maybe you envisioned going into the 2022 games, but like, would you say that this is how you see the sport moving forward into like maybe a next stage of making it more professional and making it like more interesting for maybe like a non-CrossFitter to like get engaged with the sport?
For sure. I think there's always hurdles. Like, on the flip side of that, if you're adding 10 brand new movements to every competition, from a spectator perspective, that's also very challenging. When you
Yeah,
don't
for
know
sure.
what's going on, why does this one count and this one doesn't count? Like, the one thing about movements we're all really familiar with is I know and I can see when one is good and one is bad, and I understand. So there's a little more of a challenge in that way. Even formats of events, we had a lot of work rest style workouts this year, which all of the field was like running together, and then it was hard to know who was in the lead. So
Oh,
there's hard
yeah.
there are hurdles around it. I think there's no way to do it perfectly, and still keep it as engaging on the kind of unknown and unknowable side, right? If you're gonna make it too formulaic and too predictable, then I think that's sort of the route we were going down 2 years ago. And so it's refreshing, and there's something new, and I think it is exciting to keep it fresh. But it's just, we'll see what that means. I don't know. I'm not a spectator either, right? Like, I'm on the field, so
Yeah.
I know what I see, and I see something different than my parents see. So I just like I think we got to have the conversations and listen to people and see what it means, and you have to find a way to strike that balance between having a fun spectator experience that's engaging and understandable, because that's what brings people in. Especially, I mean, some of the CrossFit community will watch always no matter what because they're already in it, but to bring
Mhm.
in new people, you want to have something that's easy to engage with, but you also don't want to totally throw the validity of the test out the window and have it just be a circus act, right?
Yeah.
So there's stuff that will be really fun to watch but entirely irrelevant when it comes to testing the athletes. So there's a balance to be struck there, and I
Mm.
think they're trying, and this year was cool. They tried something a little different, a little new, and I think there were parts of it that worked really great. And like I said, it's like volatility is exciting. It's fun when it's a race right to the end. But there's pieces that I don't know, we might have to take back to the drawing board. And it's not my job. I think we give the feedback where we can. And to
Yeah.
CrossFit's credit, it seems like they're paying more and more attention to those little things and trying to always make it better, right? I think they don't stand to gain by making it worse, right? So they're doing their best, and I think every year, like always, we're going to come back next year and it'll be a little different, and we'll see what that means.
With having such a different style of programming for the games, are there certain things that you're gonna change? Well, of course, every year there's things that you change to make sure that you do better the next year or work on your weaknesses. But like with the programming being so different with Boz, are there like specific things that you're already looking to implement in your training that maybe you hadn't before?
I mean, my athlete profile is different than a lot of people in CrossFit, and I think that honestly, the young athletes coming in probably are the ones who will be struck most by that, because a lot of them have just done CrossFit their whole lives and
Yeah.
haven't done other sports. Whereas, like, I think some athletic background in some of those odd skills is where you get people who they just get it, or they just randomly can do it. Like, that doesn't come from being in a CrossFit gym your whole life. Like why I could walk on parallel bars, like, it's not a surprise. Like, there's just like there's those things that, and my athlete background is very skill heavy, so a lot of those really risky new movements were very skill heavy. And so, to be honest, most of the stuff that we did that was brand new, I didn't struggle with. And I
Right.
struggled in other areas because I've been, directing my training differently in the last couple of years. And you're working around little things, and I just, like, my preparation was maybe not where it needed to be in certain areas, certain time domains, certain modalities, whatever. So you look at that and you try to shift focus, I think. But a lot of the new stuff, it was just kind of fun, and it was like, it was interesting because it was high risk. Just because you have some experience with it doesn't mean you can't fail a rep or fail a movement, and one failure on a legless pegboard is like you're gone. But
Yeah.
still, it's like, I'll add those in because I never did them until I was on the floor, but I didn't struggle with them. But the trap always is next year nobody's going to struggle with them, right? So even that stuff, like, you get to surprise people on the parallel bars once, but only once. And then, like, I've already
Okay,
seen
but like,
people have built full rigs, and, like, the reality of some of that stuff is I probably won't touch parallel bars again until they're in competition again. And then I
you don't
likely
need
won't
to.
struggle with them, and it's fine. But the margin between other athletes is going to get smaller.
Sure.
And, like, that's just the thing. It's like, I don't spend a lot of time on those things, like my gymnastics and whatever. I really wish we got to do those rope climbs on the last day. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
something I did for a decade too, and it would have been awesome.
Oh
But
man, I wanted
it's
to see
just
that
like,
so bad.
oh, we'll see it. We'll see it for sure. But now everybody's got a heads up. Again,
Yeah.
everybody's going to start doing them. So it's like, some of that stuff, the new things were less surprising. Honestly, I underperformed in some fairly routine things where everyone else, the level is just getting so high that, if you stumble once on something that everybody's good at, then you're in 30th, right? And that's just the
Yeah.
thing. So,
Nobody loves that.
so my drawing board likely looks different than a lot of athletes, basically.
Okay.
But it's not, at least it's not difficult stuff that I need to work on. It's just stuff that takes time, takes reps. You just got to keep doing it.
Well, something that you don't need to work on, obviously, like we just said, the parallel bars, but you've also worked on like your swag when you're out there. Like this moment, I was like, are you kidding me? That's amazing. Where did that come from? We've never seen that Pat Vellner before.
Yeah, followed it up with a sick 35th place finish in the shuttle overhead. So,
Ah, it
yeah,
doesn't get nobody remembers that. We remember this.
well, I'm here to remind you. It's like, don't believe what you see on Instagram. But yeah, I know. Like I said, that was one that was like, it's cool to see. And I didn't know, honestly, that event was weird to me because I thought it would be a lot easier for everyone. You think you forget what, like, that many years of exposure to something does. And you're like, this is super routine and easy. Like, I get that people haven't really done it, but to me, it was such a baseline skill that I was like, oh, surely this is a bunch of really fit people. Like, surely this isn't going to be a problem for anybody. And I was
And then
thinking,
it
like,
was.
how much do you have to, like, really push the touch and go on the cleans? Like, how much do you have to run in transition was like what I was
Sure.
thinking. And then after watching a couple heats, I was like, man, guess this
I
is
guess
this
I'm
is
good at
harder.
this.
Well, I didn't know either, right? I haven't done it in like 5 years at least, and
Yeah.
they didn't have any parallel bars in the back, so nobody was able to practice at all until we were on the floor, which
How do you
probably
warm
was
that
another
up?
big thing. I did some bear walks. Uh, I don't know. I did some squat
I mean, I
cleans, Lauren.
guess, yeah,
I
like,
did some
I
squat cleans, and then I walked out there and just did them. But that's why, yeah, those are sometimes the things that people don't see. Where it's like occasionally we get a piece of equipment that we can play with in the back. Sometimes you just don't, and we're like,
okay,
we
so what
ask in
is
the
the warm-up
briefing.
area like? Like,
Uh, it's not the
you're
best.
like, "Next question, please."
Like,
Tell us, Pat. Let us know.
like we had, did we even have a handstand walk ramp? I think we had one for that one. We had no, there's no pegboard back there. There's a pull-up bar, but not enough height to do bar muscle ups. So like any of that stuff, you go in cold always. You do like, I think they had rings hanging for the parallel bar workout, so you could do a couple ring dips.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but that was it. They have lots of platforms. They have lots of like bikes and stuff. You can get a good general warm up in. But for the sandbag workout, we had some sandbags. So occasionally they'll be like they put stuff in. They're getting, and I will say they're getting better at it. Years past, there were some moments where we were like, this is gonna be sketchy getting out there. But most of the time they'll have a few things of equipment that you need. Like we had yokes back and we had to do the heavy yoke, but
Mhm.
they didn't have, you couldn't change the height, and they didn't have the height written on it, like what it was. And we had
Oh.
chosen our height like 3 days before. So you just were
You're
picking
like,
up a
"I don't
yoke
remember."
at like a random height, being like, oh, I hope my height on the floor is not this one, because I will really struggle if that's the case.
Oh, wow.
So it was just, there's always little things. So it always makes it a little exciting when you get out there, but you can't have everything back there either. And like, you're
Right.
limited a bit by the size of the room. Like the ceilings are low. What are you going to do? Like we can't do bar muscle ups back there. Really sorry. Like just is what it is. You can't do a pegboard. There's nowhere to go. Like we can't have you, unless we like build a rig. There's just some stairs that could take you outside. You put something outside, but I don't know. Like it's just, you are limited, and I think we get that. So there's always, as athletes trying to perform your best, you're always back there like, what the hell is this? This is ridiculous. How can we be
Yeah,
possibly
yeah.
expected to perform? But we
And then
understand
somehow
that
you
there's
all do.
limitations, right? Yeah, we understand that there's limitations, and the reality of it is, it's not like don't get to warm up and the other guys do. Like
Right.
everyone has the
Everybody's
same
cold.
equipment, so it's kind of like, all right, look, we do what we can, and they, you know, we had heavy stuff to be able to be ready to lift heavy and things like that. You can genuinely warm up to a point of being like comfortable. You're not going to hurt yourself,
Okay,
and like
sure.
if you can't really prep for like a bar muscle up or like a skill like that, it's reasonably low impact, and we're all pretty good at them. Like I get it, it's not a huge deal, but it's fun. It makes it exciting. I'll tell you what.
It does, the
There's some fun
CrossFit
conversations back
Games.
there sometimes.
What, like, because obviously this is your 8th CrossFit Games, you kinda know what to expect, and you even said, like, it's gotten better over the years, but, like, when you look at some of the rookies, because we had a handful of them this year, are their eyeballs just so big? Like, how do I even, like, warm up for this? Like, what is the atmosphere like with them?
I mean, they're pretty good. Most of the guys that are young have been doing it a long time. But I will say that occasionally, and I did this when I first came in too, but occasionally, like someone will say something and you're just like, oh, you're new here. Like they don't
You forget they
care.
were a rookie until they say certain things.
Yeah. And I remember one guy when we were sizing the yokes this
Yeah.
year, we were able to choose between, we had 10 different heights we could choose from. So the like 10 different notches on the yoke.
Mhm.
And he was standing there waffling between, like, I'm like, what's the deal? He goes, I just wish there was a height between 7 and 8. Like, I feel like I can't decide if I want 7 or 8. And I was just like, dude, last year we got 4 choices. Like, it was 3 or 4, and we had to do the heavy yoke on the turf. So you were like, you want one between seven. Like, we got 10 choices, dude. You don't know what kind of luxury you're living in. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and that was last year, 4 years ago. Like, forget it. Like, it was like
One setting.
yeah, they're flying you to Aromas in the middle of the night to go pull a max
Yeah.
deadlift after you. It's like, dude,
Oh, that's
it's like
wild.
it just like the challenge has changed a little bit, and I think that there's a little more understanding around trying to help people perform their best, to put on a good
Mhm.
show and they represent themselves well. And I think it used to be a little more like suck it up and deal with it, and a bit more about like grit and things like that. So you can see the people who've grown up in more of that era where like I get to set all my stuff the way I want, or some kids that are maybe 20 in the last 3 years, 2 years, there's been a lot of online competitions where you're doing everything in your
Yeah,
own
that's true.
gym and then you're ranked based on that. And then now you got these like weird parameters you got to deal with. And I don't get this, but I get that. And I got to stand in the corral for 30 minutes before I go. And it just, you can see sometimes they're like, well, surely this isn't fair or safe. And we're like, no, probably
Welcome to the
not.
CrossFit Games.
But no, and I say that, but like it has gotten significantly more safe,
Absolutely.
obviously, and like it.
Yeah.
But you can see sometimes those little things, or someone says something, and you're like, yeah, honestly, like you're so lucky that you have 10 choices. Like
Right.
you don't know
Well,
what
and
we you
even
don't know
like,
what we used to do, right? And it was
yeah.
before my time. There was things that I saw or heard stories that you're like, wow, I'm fortunate to have what I have, right? And so we try to remind them and be like, hey, you're glad you
Welcome.
weren't here 6 years ago, buddy. It was a whole other thing.
Yeah. Well, and even you bring up like all of the online competitions, and especially with like COVID and travel, like so many people have
Exactly.
had the luxury of like setting things up exactly how I want, like doing my warm up and I'm ready to go like 3 minutes after that. Everybody has been like so bougie almost about their setup and how to get things ready, that a live in person competition is just wildly different from that.
Yeah. You just have to relinquish a lot of control, right? And I struggle with that
Yeah.
still. Like I look at something sometimes and I'm like, well, why? Surely it should be this way. Like, what are we doing? This makes no sense. And it's like a little bit of my OCD, and I want to control things a little more, and I have to remember to put that aside. And like you can say it or ask the question or jump up and down all you want, and they're not going to change it. It's like there's just like this is what it is, and this is what you're going to do. So you better make peace with that pretty quickly, and just figure out how you're going to do that now. Um, and so I don't know. It's an interesting exercise, but for sure, the people who have kind of like I said, if you're 18 and coming in, some of the young kids that are 18, 19, your last couple years of competition in the open division have been online,
Mhm.
probably mostly up until like a year ago. So yeah, of course, in those situations, you've got such a different level of control, um, and I think you say like you had the luxury of doing that, but I think it's more fun to do it in person,
Yeah, for
obviously.
sure. For sure.
And you get a little different experience out of it, and maybe those wide eyes sometimes are from a bit of that where it's like, holy shit, like this is what the Coliseum floor feels like this is the warm up area, like this is like,
Yeah.
it's a lot to take in sometimes. Um, but it's good. I think it's good for people to have that exposure, and those are the real competition environments, and it's fun to see how people deal with that stuff. And I sometimes, I don't know, that you got to remember to enjoy it sometimes, because it goes by super fast. And if you're there like constantly trying to suppress this, like don't get too overwhelmed by everything. You got to focus. And then all of a sudden it's like the last event's done and you're like, "Oh man, like I haven't looked up from the ground in 4 days, 5 days." And so there's a balance to be had there, but I think that the young guys are doing awesome and it's cool to see. With that
Okay.
said, I'm not retiring or anything, so
That was honestly gonna be my next question. I was like, "Wait, wait, wait." You're gonna be back next year.
yep, back and better than ever,
You looked
baby.
down, you looked down. I feel like you weren't being fully honest.
Well, of course I will. Look,
Okay, good.
I had a bunch of people ask me about it again this year, and just like they did last year, and I'm like, well, look, yeah, like I took sixth, but like I took sixth
I'm
in the
not
world.
dead.
Like I'm not like yeah, a corpse out there. Like not like I won an event. I was like, look, it's fine. Like I don't know. I feel for Tia. A bunch of people asking her, and like,
Yeah.
fucking woman just won 6 times in a row. Get off her back. She'll compete again if she wants. Like so, it just
For as long
even
as
like
she
said
wants.
like last year, I was like, man, like I just came. I was on the podium again, and people are like, so like, are you done? It's like, guys,
Right,
you
like,
wish you'd like
yeah.
that. Like, no way. So it's a good job. It's a pretty good job, and someone's gonna have to really come take it from me. So for now, I'm happy to keep coming and competing, and like I said, I feel like I didn't represent myself as good as I could have this year at the games. So I'm looking forward to going to Rogue and having another crack at the can.
Good. You know who we need to prove wrong though is this post was so funny because you're talking about this man.
Yeah.
Why is he breaking? It's not even that heavy. Guy on the fence 2022. Did you really hear
Hey,
him say that?
no, I just saw this photo and I thought it was funny. You got to be
Oh,
able to
I
laugh at
literally
yourself,
thought
you know?
that you could, like, hear somebody in the crowd just chirping at you.
Look, I will tell you though that workout, that's where like I got like a bit of a heat injury after that workout.
Mm,
And I think there was like an interesting timeline where if you were about 35 minutes, people who finished ahead of 35 minutes were like,
yeah.
that was a cool event. It was fun. That finish was really cool. All the people there. And anybody who was like after 35 minutes, I think that was where the heat was starting to like mess people up. And anybody after that was like, I was like, that was like the deepest, darkest pit of hell. Like those stairs where you just like your body was kind of shutting down, you're cramping, but everybody's like on top of you. And all you can hear is like you break on the bag and everyone's just like, pick it up, pick it up. You're like, I
I'm
assure you,
trying.
if I could pick it up, I would do so. You know, like you're just like, you start like hearing people and you're like, my God, like somebody shut that man up. I'm, I'm trying to get up these stairs. All right. It's taking every piece of focus not to like shit my pants right now. So everybody just chill. All right. No, that was just like an interesting, I have, yeah, I think people's memories of that event are significantly different depending on like, or whereabouts you ended up in that scale. So
Yeah, because I've talked to
it's a
so
very
many
funny one.
athletes about this event, and I'm pretty sure everyone that I've spoken with has said that that was their favorite event. But Patty V
Yeah.
is like, "No, no,
I feel
no."
like people either loved it or really hated it. And
And you
I
really
mean, I
hated
didn't
it.
like really hate it, but it hurt me pretty bad. And so you know, it was just one of those ones. I again, you got to be able to like laugh at yourself though. So whatever. Like, yeah, it was fine. I know. I didn't have a really good heat prep and I paid for it. So, you know, you got to do what you got to do and that was one of those hard lessons you learn early in a competition. So, but that was, yeah, I just saw that photo and the way that even just the way that it's in black and white, I was like, yeah, that's
Oh,
pretty much
yeah.
how I felt. I look at
This
it,
is
I'm like,
so
that's
dramatic.
exactly how I felt. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so the 2022 season, it's over. It's behind us. You're getting ready for Rogue. Um, what are you most looking forward to this season ahead?
Hmm. I don't know. It's a good question, I guess. I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's kind of the same. I don't think about this season coming up much different than the one that just passed.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just gonna try to like right now get myself back to a strong baseline and get my joints and body feeling good, and then just be consistent. Like I think it's fun. The off season stuff's always fun. When the end of the season, like the game season hits,
Mhm.
there's kind of a nice assessment of like, you know, where did I go? All right, cool, like sixth, whatever. Got to reassess, but all right, sixth. So that means I'm basically invited to any off-season competition that I want to go to, which is sweet. And then you can kind of decide where you want to go with that, and be like, all right, I have some opportunities that a lot of athletes don't have, and you know,
Mhm.
you earn those opportunities, but it's fun. It's fun to look at those things, and then you know, Rogue is a great competition. It's a little more. It's a smaller group. It's a little more intimate competition, and it just always feels like it's a bit more informal and fun. Um, so I'm looking forward to that. It's always a really good time. I've done it. This will be the fourth year I've done it, and I
Mm.
always have a good time there. And then I'll probably go back to Wadapalooza. Tier is operating that competition
Mhm.
now, so I'll go do that. Ooh. And,
I wasn't gonna say anything. I was like, "Oh."
and I think that they've been talking about doing some interesting format changes too. So I
At
haven't
Wodapalooza?
heard, yeah, I haven't heard definitively what that's going to look like, but it's interesting, and I think it's fun to do some different stuff, right? So there's some opportunities to do things a little different this off season, and I'll probably still do I've been doing Rogan Wadapalooza the last 3 years, four
Mhm.
years, so I'll do that again because why not? And I gotta go defend the title of Wadapalooza anyway. But yeah, then I don't know. Then the season I think is going to be pretty much the same as far as we've heard with quarterfinals and semifinals. So, you know, I think you just kind of put your head down and just sort of stomp through that quarterfinals, open quarterfinals, all that stuff, and then I'm hopeful that I can maybe go somewhere fun for semis this year because
Mhm.
I stayed in Canada last year, but it's fun to just do some competitions you've never done before. I've done Atlas Games 4 times. I've
Where would
done
you
Granite
prefer to
Games
go if they
before.
let you pick?
It's a good question. I would hope that there would be something on the west side of the continent, given that everything was like east of center last year.
Yeah.
And I live on an island in the Pacific Ocean. It would just be nice if I didn't have to. I had a good laugh at all the people complaining about where they got placed last year because they had to, drive an extra like 200 miles or something like that. I was like, I gotta fly like 4,000
Anywhere
kilometers or
I
something
go.
like that to go to the closest competition.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just like cool. Like, so I would like if there was something they could just sort of like tilt over our way. I've done Atlas and Granite Games, so if they both are there
Mhm.
again, like fine. But I've kind of been there, done that before. And I don't know. I mean, and then the Tennessee ones would be the farthest ones away from me. So I don't know. You kind of just damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think just need to put something closer to us.
Yeah.
Give us a break
That's
here
the
on the West. Like,
solution.
come on, give me something. Give us something in the West side of the world. Like, geez.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll see. I don't know. It's always fun, and like it doesn't. I'm not too concerned ever about trying to be pick and choosy with where I go because of who I think is going to be there. Like whatever. That's always it doesn't matter. I like to compete against different people, and if you're gonna
Yeah.
fancy yourself one of the best in the sport, then you gotta not worry about those kind of things. It doesn't really matter who shows up. You should be willing to go toe to toe with people. So we'll see. I've never done the Tennessee ones. Oh, Mac, you get a sword, right? For
I think
winning.
so. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
fuck, never mind then. Mac,
That's
100%.
right. Because
Yeah, I
obviously
want
the sword
that.
is the coolest part.
Yeah, I need that in the office somewhere. I love events that do that. Rogue that does the big like wrestling belt award. That's awesome. I love stuff like that. Those are great. I feel like Strongman does that. We need more of those. We
Yeah.
just win like
More
a
cool
giant
awards.
shield or something like that. You're like,
Yeah.
sweet. I'm
So
sure those guys just have it all in a garage somewhere too, just like cluttering up space. But
would you rather the prize purses go down slightly to have a cooler award on the podium?
what prize purses?
Like if we're talking about like Wadapalooza, for instance.
Oh, I see. I thought you were talking about semifinals, and I was
Oh,
legitimately asking what prize purses.
no, 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 no. Like I'm
um,
thinking more off-season competitions.
I mean, yeah, like, what do you mean? Like, I'm sure that sword costs like $100. Like, I don't think it's like a $5,000 sword,
You don't
but
think it's a real cool one?
yeah, I mean, sure. Although no, I'll say no because I think that I can say sure because I'm in a position where I'm okay. But I think a lot of people would be like, "Hey, Vellner, what are you saying?
They would
No,
come
don't put the
after
prize
you
purses down. What are you talking
so
about?
that you can have a
So
cool
you can have a
sword.
trinket? Like, no, come on." But there's more events doing that stuff. I saw West Coast Can West Games gave like these like lumberjack axes for
Oh, I
their
didn't
for
see
their
that.
podium. Yeah, it was great. You should go look it up. Go look at the
Yeah, I
photos. I
will.
think Chandler won. Everybody on the podium
Yep,
got
I
a
saw
big
that.
axe, and the head of
Hmm,
the axe was like a gold, silver, or bronze.
huh.
So very cool. Anyway, those things are just I don't know. They're fun for invitational competitions. I think to do.
Sure. Okay,
So
we'll keep it
anyway,
at that.
yeah.
All right, well,
I
Patty
think at
Vellner.
Wadapalooza the last 2 years we didn't even get medals. So I
Oh.
mean, maybe they should give us something like a nice Hawaiian shirt. In Miami, that's all I need. I don't need much, right? Just give me something.
Just a token of appreciation that now you can wear for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, you're just like championship Hawaiian shirt. And then I would go on holidays right afterwards. We'll go
Oh,
somewhere
yeah,
tropical and I
see,
can wear
now,
my
yes,
Hawaiian shirt.
it transitions well
Easy,
into your
easy.
vacation after the
Exactly.
season.
Full circle.
Thank you so much for catching up with us today. We will see you very soon at Rogue.
Yeah, after my 2 weeks of preparation, I should be very ready.
Exactly. We will follow up with that.
Sounds good.